Hi all, welcome back to the John Deere B restoration. As you can see, we have the front pedestal and steering shaft laid out there on the stands. In the last video I was taking the wheels off and discussing where the wear could possibly be. Well, since then obviously we've taken the steering shaft out the pedestal. You do that by taking the nut at the top of that top of this gearbox in here, loosening off the sector gear, and then hopefully, as this one did, the steering shaft drops out like so. When we got it to bits, we found that the bush in here, which is this chap, was quite worn inside, and that was where most of the play was. Up in the top there's very little play. This eccentric bush here is a nice tight fit on the shaft, steering shaft, and it's a nice tight fit in the housing on the pedestal, certainly within good tolerance anyway. And so I decided we'll make a new bush, which I've made. I've knocked that out on the lathe. And then I had a bit to think about, well, let me start again. The B is the only thing John Deere tractor at the time that used a washer as a thrust bearing. And I suspect that's why all the John Deere Bs tended to be a bit heavy on the steering initially, certainly the early ones. And just by the knowledge I have that the H is on a proper bearing and the Model A is on a proper bearing, and certainly the H that I have is a much lighter steering than any of the Bs that I have, and the A, which is to be rebuilt eventually, the steering on it is light. So I'm thinking, well, why can't we put a proper bearing in here, do away with this thrust washer arrangement, and put a proper bearing in this housing. So I've been doing a bit of research on bearings, and I found a bearing that will fit. Obviously the housing will need to be machined out a bit further so the bearing sits further up in it, and the shaft needs a little bit of attention because there's a lot with it been worn in the first place. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a lot of wear on here. This shaft is quite thin, so that will need building up. Hopefully we can build it up enough to put a bearing in. So that's the plan, and then we can get a proper seal in the bottom as well. So that's my plan. I'm going to put it onto a thrust bearing deal, which no one will ever know because you won't be able to see it, but hopefully it will give a lighter steering, because these thrust washers, once they start drying up with grease, they do start to become quite, well, I don't know what's the best word to call it, sticky possibly, and it just makes the steering heavy. So that's the plan. So that's really much as what we can do with the pedestal. As I say, all the work's to be done in this end, down this end, whereas the top end is pretty good. In fact, I think that eccentric bushing could be brand new, or new-ish anyway. I don't think it's original because there's hardly any score marks or wear marks on it at all. I don't know if it will show up in here, but on purpose, yeah. Normally these are quite shiny, these surfaces. Well, this one still has its machine marks in it. So, eccentric bushing, by that I mean, but if you look, I don't know if that's going to show, but the hole isn't central to the actual piece of metal, and the idea is you can adjust this in the housing, bringing which will then bring the worm on the steering column into a better mesh with the sector on top of the steering shaft, which I'll show when we put it back together. That'll be the easiest way to explain that. So that's about it for the steering pedestal. So as you can see, we don't have any big wheels anymore in the shed, and there's the axle laid on the same stand. I've done a little bit of prep work on it before I've done this video because I knew they're not the easiest things to get to bits, and everything can be a bit tight. And so First job is to remove these set screws on this dust seal either end, which I've done. Then to remove the circlips that would be on these nuts that hold these gears in. Again, I did that. And then really, it's just a matter of wedging something between the two shafts and nuts, and waiting until one of them eventually decides to pop a shaft out. And as you can see, this is the one that's gone, which is okay, that's good. And so we take the bearing off in here. There we are, there's the bearing. Big old taper bearing. Initial thoughts on that bearing are that it's a little bit pitted. It's not the best, but the outer bearing looks quite good. But I suspect strongly, because it runs in grease and hasn't had the water to it possibly, it's survived. Your seal sits inside there. There's these two sort of cappy things, and the seal runs on this piece of casting here, which will knock off if you want to take it out, which we will do. We'll put new seals in. And so there we have it. If you recall, the reason we took this one to bits, or had to take this to bits if we wanted to or not, was the rather large tooth missing from here. So that's the reason why this one's come to bits. Other than that, I wanted to check the bearings and seals. I have a new cog down there, which hopefully will clean up nicely and go back on. So yeah, so there we go really. Of course one shaft is still quite tight, so that's going to take some getting out, but it'll come out, not a problem. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot more you can say to that. The casing seems okay. Oh, there was one thing. In trying to split the two shafts, I've managed to break a nut, which is not good. Not good at all. I don't know where I'll get one. I'll have to see if my contacts in America can get me one. But yeah, broke that nut, not good. So if you are doing that, just be careful, they do break. Surprised to see that actually it looks to be just black iron cast. It doesn't seem to be a steel nut at all. Weird really. So yeah, whoop, a bit too quick there, don't get dizzy. Ha! So yeah, there we go. So I'll take that other shaft out, other cog out, and then we can get those axle ends. And over there, I'll guarantee it'll be solid with grease. All the others I've done have been, so we'll have to sweat that out, get it cleaned out a bit, and get it back together. As I say, we'll pressure wash it, shot blast it, get it onto an undercoat, and then we can start getting the framework, basic framework put back together, and we'll start building the foundations and go from there. Alright then. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Bye.